let's slow this down even more, because this is one of those situations where um, if you don't pause and really look at the structure underneath, it just sounds like noise. And this this isn't noise. This is signal, loud signal. So um, what we're watching right now isn't just a legal dispute. It's not even really about one lawyer. It's about what happens when an institution designed to run on rules starts running on vibes. Um, and yeah, that's when things get dangerous. Um, I want to walk through this the way I actually think about problems, with pauses, with connective tissue, because systems don't usually fail in a dramatic explosion. They degrade quietly, then unevenly. Then suddenly everyone realizes at the same time that something essential snapped. Okay, so here we go. At the center of this is Lindsay Halligan. She continues to appear as the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, even after multiple federal judges have said very clearly that she does not legally hold that office. And this isn't a technical footnote. This isn't lawyers arguing in the margins. Judges are openly angry about it, like furious, on the record. One federal judge looked at DOJ filings and basically said, "Why are you lying to the court? Why is her name still on these pleadings? Why are you pretending she has authority she does not have?" And that question is lethal, because courts are built on a fragile assumption that officers of the court act in good faith. Once that assumption collapses, the entire system starts vibrating badly. Now, here's where this gets worse. Instead of correcting the record, instead of quietly removing her name and protecting the integrity of dozens, maybe hundreds of cases, the Department of Justice did the opposite. They issued a public statement accusing federal judges of bias, hostility, even calling enforcement of the law undemocratic judicial activism. Um, yeah, that's not normal. Historically, DOJ avoids attacking judges at all costs, even when DOJ loses, even when rulings hurt. Because once the Justice Department frames judges as political enemies, the system stops being law-based and becomes power-based. And power-based systems, um, they always fail. So let's talk about why this situation exists at all. Under the US Constitution, United States attorneys are classified as inferior officers. That's a legal term. And Article 1 gives Congress the authority to determine how inferior officers are appointed. Congress used that authority very deliberately. The president nominates, the Senate confirms, and if there's a gap, an interim U.S. attorney can serve for 120 days. One time, that's it. No do-overs, no reshuffles until you find someone willing to do politically risky things. And if that 120-day window expires without confirmation, the district court judges decide who temporarily runs the office. Not DOJ leadership, not the White House, the courts. That's not a loophole. That's a safeguard. In the Eastern District of Virginia, Trump initially appointed an interim U.S. attorney who was acceptable to the Senate. Confirmation was coming, but this interim refused to prosecute James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James, saying there was no evidence and that such cases would be frivolous. So he was pushed out. Trump used his one interim appointment. Then Lindsay Halligan was installed. And yeah, that's where everything breaks. You don't get a second interim. You don't get to recycle a slot because the first person didn't cooperate politically. The statute is explicit. Judges know it. Law students know it. That's why Judge Curry disqualified Halligan outright in the Comey matter and described her role as legally invalid. And here's the part people miss. Once someone is a legal nullity, everything they touch becomes unstable. It doesn't matter if the case is political or not. It doesn't matter if the defendant is guilty or innocent. If the person supervising the indictment lacks lawful authority, defense attorneys can attack the entire case. And they will. That's why judges are so alarmed. The Eastern District of Virginia handles some of the most sensitive prosecutions in the country: espionage, defense contractors, national security, large-scale fraud, drug trafficking. These are not symbolic cases. These are cases where failure means real-world harm. And DOJ leadership is willing to risk all of that just to keep one person's name on filings. Why? Because removing her would be admitting they never had authority to put her there. Yeah, systems hate admitting error. Institutions, especially. Look at the DOJ statement again. They didn't say, "We respectfully disagree with the court's interpretation." They didn't cite precedent. They didn't engage legally. They accused judges of bias, of hostility, of political motivation. That's grievance language, not law. Former DOJ officials, writing in places like Lawfare, Just Security, and major newspapers, have already flagged how dangerous this posture is. Once DOJ treats adverse rulings as illegitimate, there is no limiting principle left. Every loss becomes proof of conspiracy. Every constraint becomes sabotage. At that point, the DOJ stops being an institution and starts behaving like a faction. Harry Litman, a former U.S. attorney, put it bluntly: a disqualified prosecutor is equivalent to no prosecutor at all.
Can't make it make sense, but I can hopefully explain a little bit more why it doesn't make sense. First, everything you say on the law is right, and it's labyrinthine, but we've known that before. There's a reason for it. And by the way, this incredible contempt and disparagement from Pam Bondi, she just doesn't know the Constitution, because here Congress has acted, in addition to everything else, where you say, of course, they want to protect their own ability and not have the presidency do end runs around it. It is right in the Constitution that Congress shall determine the process for appointing inferior officers, undisputed. That's what a U.S. attorney is. But you think about this hapless AUSA, it's kind of back to the March 15th Abrego Garcia times, where they're just in there doing their own thing. And I think your analysis, Ben, is these first 2 points are spot on. Remember, it does fall to the court to decide who should be the U.S. attorney. It's not a political decision when the interim has run out until there's a confirmation. And it's not a political decision. They just want to put someone competent in. And the broadside from Bondi saying the court and magistrates there are insulting, when really what they're saying is everything you say, everything Bondi says can just be summarized as the laws against us, but she can only view it through the prism of some kind of political attack from the judges. So they resent that for sure, but also they're the ones who are going to, at least in part, have to clean up the mess. We know that when you're not Halligan, it could as well be, I've been struggling for the best metaphor here, but she could be Mickey Mouse. She could be Benjamin Franklin. She's a pretend non-prosecutor. And she's not permitted, a pretend non-prosecutor who doesn't legitimately have the power of the United States, even to supervise a case. So every single one, it's as if she's recused. She is, in one of, I think the Third Circuit opinion about Haba puts it, a legal nullity. So every case that is brought, every indictment for every crime, and of course, they are simultaneously doing their bullshit political prosecutions, but also there's some pretty serious crimes in the District of New Jersey, the Eastern District of Virginia. And those are the very ones that, would normally be done in the name of public safety that they are jeopardizing. You're going to have defendants, without the slightest doubt, come in front of the Eastern District of Virginia and judges like Leonie Brinkema and say to her, you cannot, this wasn't a legit indictment, and it was maybe different when Halligan stumbled into it not knowing, but she knew about it and still went forward. Let me say a little bit more about this claim that OLC has blessed it. They have not. What has happened is the political officials at DOJ, like Todd Blanche, have just given a command from the White House. You keep calling her U.S. attorney. We know Haba has resigned and Halligan has been disqualified. You keep calling her U.S. attorney. We are told that at the same time, the Office of Legal Counsel is looking into this, but the claim that they're hoping OLC blesses, and, who knows if the OLC is the old OLC and does things with integrity, is, well, Judge Curry disqualified her, said she's a legal nullity, but she didn't exactly say leave office. So therefore, she can stay there. Think about that for half a second. It's so desperate, it's so contemptuous, and it is such a freight train leading to disaster. We have someone who is a legal nullity. The bottom of the opinion from Judge Curry didn't say leave office. So now she stays there, and a legal nullity oversees the indictments of serious criminals. You just can't do it. It's a violation of the Constitution. So I don't see, even if OLC does some kind of far-fetched opinion, well, you don't have to, so long as the direct command hasn't been made, that they could not possibly opine that that courts would be out of their authority in saying, as they got to, there's a problem with this indictment, that indictment, every single frigging indictment that now comes out of the EDVA, which I can remind you, or our listeners, Ben, you know it very well, has these really big defense and defense industry and really big, all kinds of cases. They're all being totally threatened. Now, we saw, it's interesting, there's a little bit of a schizophrenia here, even with churlish complain about activist judges. They saw the writing on the wall and stood down as to Haba. The exact same position, unless the Fourth Circuit over Curry gives some kind of stay. The state of the law is the exact thing. The risk they're taking is the exact risk that caused them to see reason in the Haba case and say, okay, we're resigning here now because it's going to be bedlam. You can't run an office with a legal nullity as U.S. attorney. That's precisely who Lindsay Halligan is. And as you point out, she's even less qualified than Alina Haba, less experienced, more problematic in every way. So the combination of contempt and really just complete implausible kind of reasoning. Well, they didn't say to remove her, so keep her in. They're going right into a brick wall at 100 miles an hour and doing it with total contempt. But it's a train wreck. And again, the train wreck is not just for the administration's political efforts to want to reward a political loyalist of Trump and indict a antagonist of Trump. It's the bread and butter cases that the U.S. Attorney's Office prosecutes every day in the protection of public safety. all of which they've jeopardized with a complete unreasonable caprice that I do not believe OLC could possibly blame.
Halligan wasn't placed there for continuity. She was placed there to pursue specific political targets, and backing down now would feel like conceding defeat. But systems don't care about pride. If you overload a power grid, it doesn't matter how confident you are. It trips. If you push a rocket beyond thermal limits, it doesn't matter how committed the engineers feel, it melts. And if you force a legal system to operate with officers who lack lawful authority, yeah, it collapses. That's why judges are reacting emotionally. Not because they're partisan, but because they can see the downstream consequences. They are the ones who will have to clean up the mess. They are the ones who will watch defendants walk free, not because they're innocent, but because the government broke its own rules. This isn't about one lawyer anymore. It's about whether institutions still matter at all. If you care about how power actually works, about why constraints exist, and about what happens when leaders decide rules only apply to other people. Yeah. This is one of those moments you don't ignore. Stay with this story. Share it. Subscribe. Support independent analysis. Because once systems start failing this openly, the consequences don't stay contained.